By how many aliens, I don't mean in the entire galaxy, but rather how many are in the vicinity of this planet right now. Let's say within 1 light day of the Earth. My tentative guess is between 2 and 5 million. We'll get to my reasons for generating this number shortly. By extensive observations of thousands of people over many decades, we have some small amount of information about our visitors. We can say for certain that they are social beings like us. That is, they prefer the company of others rather than a solitary existence. They are frequently seen in conjunction with more than one craft, and such craft appear to be big enough for several of them, some for hundreds of individuals. We have at least this in common with them. They all seem to use a similar propulsion system that appears not to obey linear momentum conservation, meaning that they have a common understanding of the universe, which we are presently lacking. Reports indicate that there are probably more than 20 types of aliens, but less than 50. These are ballpark figures, as is my aforementioned guess. Because we have in common with them a social nature, I conjecture, using only my own sense of appropriateness, that such a being would not leave his home planet, never to return, if he was not accompanied by less than perhaps 100,000 other individuals of his own kind. I mean here that I personally wouldn't go off the Earth permanently unless I had a lifetime's worth of potential interesting people to meet and interact with. If my ballpark figure is reasonable, and the number of alien species is reasonable, then 50 times 100,000 is 5 million, and 20 times 100,000 is 2 million. They are not all here on Earth. Most would be in the largest ships of their flotilla, out where there are no tidal forces to contend with, and where they can remain undetected at this stage in the planet's development. If it were true that there were only 5,000 aliens total near the Earth, I would be shocked at that paltry figure. Nevertheless, it could be true, because I have no concrete information at all. Similarly, if there were 500 million aliens within 1 light day of the Earth, I would be shocked as well for the opposite reason. Is the Earth really that interesting, even when you can't, by ethical convention, just land on it anywhere at will? It was probably much more interesting when they could construct cities on the Earth and land directly to enjoy the planet's flora and fauna. Now they have to stay off the Earth while the indigenous people develop. Not really too interesting. Something like a nursery. How many people go to the hospital to look at newborns? Right, just the new parents. Everybody has to be someplace. By now the galaxy has been completely explored by indigenous populations fanning out everywhere. Even the Drake equation posited 10,000 planets with indigenous life. Here's 10,000 dots over the Milky Way. Now consider that it might take 10,000 years to get 10 light years to the next star. That's 1/1000th of light velocity, and that's the minimum necessary for interstellar space travel, because stars have relative velocities on that scale, and you can't very well go to the train station to board a train that goes by at 60 miles per hour. You'd have to be going 60 as well to get on. So at 1/1000th light velocity, you could span the Milky Way galaxy in 1,000 times 100,000 equals about 100 million years. And that would be in 10,000 pit stops at the next star system. That is about every 10 light years. And let's say you develop that colonized planet for 10,000 years before sending out a new flotilla of ships to form the next colony. To the previous 100 million years of travel time without stopping, we have to add 10,000 10,000-year stops, and that's another 100 million years. So we now have a string of developed colonies all the way across the galaxy in only 200 million years. Now take the next step, and instead of sending out one flotilla to extend the string, let's send out two, so that we start out with two strings, and this branching continues doubling at every developed colony. Now we run out of potential stars for colonies very fast, because we have now a power function. There are about 300 billion stars in the Milky Way. This is about 2 to the 38th power. That is, we can have 39 doublings and we run out of potential stars to go to in the Milky Way to colonize. Every doubling takes now 20,000 years instead of 10,000, but since it's a power function we can only have 39 of them, and we run out of stars. So our colonization time is now 39 times 20,000 equals 780,000 years, plus 100 million years, because that's the minimum time required to traverse the galaxy without stopping at 1/1000th of light velocity. And most of the new flotillas sent out will have to go farther and farther afield to get to another star not yet colonized. Now, if each new colony eventually sends out 3 new colonizing flotillas, we get only 25 triplings at 30,000-year intervals for only 750,000 extra years, about the same as 4 doublings. At 4 new flotillas, it's 19 quadruplings and 460,000 extra years added on to the 100 million years. The time required for one planet to colonize the entire galaxy at these very conservative rates is on the order of just 100 million years, no matter how you cut it, as long as each new colony sends out more than one new flotilla. Consider that the first planets to develop with indigenous life occurred perhaps 2 to 4 billion years ago. You have to wait for supernovae to spew out the heavier elements for some billions of years, so that the universe has the materials of which we are made. Now look at that Drake map and ask yourself if you really think that the universe is not overrun already with trillions upon trillions of explorers. The foregoing math is why Drake considered it necessary to insert a snuff factor to get rid of every civilization that developed. That is, in his view, all civilizations realize a death wish and kill themselves off after a few short thousands of years. If this were not true for all of them, he would have to face Fermi's question head-on. Where are they? Fermi made essentially the same calculations as I and came to the same conclusion. If interstellar travel is possible, and there are many inhabited planets, statistically speaking, the galaxy should already be completely colonized many times over. These aliens presumably have no jobs or diseases nor strife of any kind to propel them to action. They must be acting out of intellectual interest alone. That is, they are collecting and integrating information about the universe they live in. They are exercising their identities as sentient beings and experiencing the fullness of being that comes to those who are rationally consistent within their own minds. Therefore, alien is to human as obstetrician is to fetus. From our perspective, the world is a dirty, fretful, and treacherous place, full of terminal dangers and agonizing moral dilemmas, as well as a few good things sprinkled in to make us feel very sad by their contrast. From the alien perspective, all is normal. This is the normal development of a planet that gives rise to an indigenous population. The transition from animal to man is tortuous. It is a messy birth to which all those alien species were also subject long ago. This is simply our turn. This is not to say that they lack sympathy for us, But what do you say to a baby crying at birth?
There, everything will be all right.
Or perhaps platitudes like,
Love your fellow man.
or,
Take better care of the earth. It's your only home.
how many nature explorers rush in to midwife a lioness giving birth? None. They just leave it alone. And when one is dying from a broken jaw, do they set the jaw and restore it to health? No, they just film it till it dies. The aliens can't help us. Charity is one of the most difficult things anyone can do. When you help another, you secure his immediate needs at the expense of his most precious possession, his autonomy. How can you achieve the fullness of being while taking handouts? The least overall suffering is achieved by leaving us alone to fend for ourselves and learn from our mistakes. Any other course merely prolongs the difficulties. Neither can they obviously show themselves to us by landing in front of City Hall and waiting for the TV crews to arrive and document the presence of aliens with absolute certainty. What you see of them is always deniable by the larger population, even though undeniable by those who see them. No direct help, either physical or philosophical, is rendered. Yet we are all allowed to think, without absolute certainty, that there is someone else out there, and therefore there is hope for a better world.